In today's video I want you to marvel at the glory and power of the Unkillable God Surge build. A necromancer of unrivaled potential, manipulating blood to deal devastating AoE damage, heal all wounds and fortify their defenses to prevent all that is unworthy of ever hoping to damage them. A perfected god to crush all that the hells throw at us. T8 easily cleared, T7 bosses killed in seconds, Pit 100 plus, no more than a walk in the park, and tormented bosses are just a training dummy to us. This build is extremely easy to play, can practically ignore all mechanics the game throws at you, clears entire screens with just the press of a button, and is at the same time relaxing to play. No annoying buffs to maintain, no summons, no minions, no spamming of abilities, just blood to feed the blood god's desires. And you too can become one. First, let's dive into the mechanics. Kuror's Embrace allows Blood Surge to drain elite enemies multiple times. All of those hits inherit the overpower properties of the initial hit. The damage of the hits, however, is not as high as you would expect, with multiple more multipliers not being inherited. Kuror's, however, has another effect. It's consuming corpses to release small novas of blood. The consumed corpses part is essential to buff our damage through Paragon nodes and passives in the skill tree. Consuming corpses also has the benefit of regenerating essence, which we can use to cast more blood surges. Killing enemies or proccing a lucky hit chance effect will spawn more corpses, which lets us cast blood surge even more during any AoE with no downtime. Single target bosses can sometimes make you run out of corpses, so you will need to use your basic skills every now and then. It is generally not worth it to exchange damage aspects for more essence regen due to much lower damage output. 99% of the time you won't need it. All of the other items are just here to boost our damage, defenses or resource management in some capacity. Of note are Blood Moon Breaches, Banished Lord's Talisman and a variety of mythics that boost our performance significantly. There are, however, multiple ways to omit them entirely if you do not have them at hand. I will talk about this in the gear and stats section later. All this and more can be found in written form in the Mobility planner with detailed sections for each topic and multiple planners for each stage of the game. Make sure to also leave a like here, which would help me quite a lot. Next, let's have a look at the skill tree and subsequently the Paragon board before we dive into the gear and stats section. We're going to start with Hemorrhage and 1 point in Enhanced Hemorrhage. We will sometimes be using Hemorrhage to refill our essence in single target fights if we ever run out of essence to cast Blood Surge. So it is going to be on your bar, but it's going to be very rarely used. Next up we pick Blood Surge with the Enhanced Blood Surge to fortify us and Paranormal Blood Surge to get stacks of overwhelming blood with every single cast of a Blood Surge, and after 5 stacks you're going to overpower. This is essential to the build. Next we're going to pick up Hued Flesh for a 12% chance to spawn a corpse. For bosses this one is doubled. We combine this with Grim Harvest to generate essence in combination with Kuror's Embrace, which consumes corpses for us, and then we pick up Fueled Death. Fueled Death is a more multiplier after consuming a corpse. Then we pick up 1 point in Spiked Armor. Spiked Armor has the effect to cap our armor. Currently we are at 9.442. When we take this point out, we are underneath the cap, so we get enough armor with this 1 point to cap our armor. Then we pick up Blood Mist with Enhanced Blood Mist. Every time a skill overpowers, we reduce the cooldown of Blood Mist. Blood Mist is our way for immunity or unstoppable. So if we are CC'd or need to get through enemies, we press this button and then we Blood Surge some more. In the Curse cluster, we pick up 2 curses. Iron Maiden with Enhanced Iron Maiden for essence generation and Decrepify for damage reduction debuff. This one also applies a lucky hit chance for enemies to be stunned and to reduce our active cooldowns by 1. This is especially useful for Blood Mist. We combine this with Amplify for 12% more damage, Death's Embrace for more damage and less damage taken, and Death's Approach for more movement speed. Now the curses usually need to be cast by you manually, but we combine this with the Cursed Aura, which now curses enemies with Decrepify and Iron Maiden automatically and spreads the curse around. In the Blood cluster we pick up more healing, more damage while healthy, more overpower damage while healthy. This is 10% per point because we are always healthy, so we overpower for 70% more damage with the points we currently have, and Drain Vitality to fortify us even more. Then we move to the Ultimate cluster, pick up Inspiring Leader for 12% critical strike chance, 18% damage reduction, and Memento Mori for 60% more bonuses for Skeletal Warriors and Skeletal Mages. Those boni do not show up in the book while you have them. So if we take those out, so we have 0% here, and look at the warriors, we have 15% because we have an aspect that boosts this one by 50%. But if we put those points back into Memento Mori and look at the book, we still are at 15%. However, we can determine the exact value by looking at the stat sheet. We are now at 74. With Memento Mori, we are at 63. So it's multiplicative with the 50% more multiplier on Sacrificial Ring. This also applies to the overpower damage. So we have 50% more and then again 60% more on this one. So this multiplier is much stronger than the value you can see here. And lastly, you pick up Ravenous Vigor. Now Ravenous Vigor will overpower our skills. The more blood orbs you consume, the more health we generate and the lower the cooldown on the overpower. This one is just something you pick up on a side. So it's a nice way to overpower additionally, but blood orbs are very hard to see, so you cannot really pick them up all that precisely. So when you're going to run around, you will sometimes see that the cooldown of this one decreases by 2. Next, let's have a look at the Paragon tree. Actually care very much about the Paragon tree for this one specifically because it's a little bit complicated. So I am going to go full screen for this one so I can show you a little bit more. On this Paragon tree, we pick up all the life nodes we can except one here and one here. We need those 2 points to get all the 10% boni you can get on the skill tree for the skill. So we are rocking 7 glyphs on the skill tree. It doesn't matter in what order we want to pick those because we're going to cap everything anyway. So in the starter board, we are going to pick up the Corporal glyph. This will improve our physical damage by 10%. If you do not have a Harlequin crest, you can take out those 2 points and 1 point here and go this route. You get 300 armor this way, so you can cap out your armor by sacrificing 2% maximum life right here. The next board is the Blood Begets Blood. We path through the aggression side here. We do not pick up Invigorated because this one is basically useless. We have around 3,000 increased damage already. So what you can see here is just 1% more damage, not worth it. So we path through here, pick up the Dexterity, then pick up Exploit and move to the left. Then we go up, have 2 points into the left and pick up the magic node here. We need this one to unlock the cap on this one for Dexterity, and we path through the life nodes right here to the north. Then we path left and pick up Blood Begets Blood. Now Blood Begets Blood increases our damage by up to 50% once we consume a blood orb. Blood orbs are very hard to see, so you want to move around erratically through the map and hope for the best for this one. So the damage is going to fluctuate by 50% depending on if you have the blood orbs or not. Especially for boss fights, you can see them better, so you need to walk around the boss in a cycle to really benefit from this node. Otherwise, this one is not going to be that great if you want to be static. For this one, I have to say, sometimes you don't want to move, especially when fighting a multi-boss fight. The bosses will stand besides each other and you need to stand right in the middle of them to hit them with the Blood Nova and the Drain at the same time. So you can sustain your essence. So that's when this node is going to drop off. You will still deal more damage because you hit 2 targets, but you will drop off the 50% damage on basically DPS on 1 target. It is what it is. You can't really circumvent this one. This node is very situational of how you are going to approach the boss. Then we pick up Aggression. This one is kind of worth it. We path through here to get to the next board. Then we're going to path further right. We pick up the Dexterity along the way. We do not pick up Remedy and we do not pick up Hardened. Both are not worth it. We just want the Dexterity here and we cap out Essence. That's 22% more critical strike damage versus targets that are not healthy. This means during boss fights, this one is going to apply much more regularly. During regular play, you just nuke enemies in 1 hit, so it doesn't really affect you, but during boss fights, this is basically a boss fight node. Then we path south, back up north for a little bit of health. We cannot pick up those 2% maximum life here. It's just not possible. I tried to squeeze out every single point here and it's just not enough. I'm missing 2 points. We cannot squeeze them out here. We cannot squeeze them out here or here. It's very bare bones already and we need the points elsewhere. So we path to the Bloodbath. That's 70% more damage with Overpower. And then we connect the boards here and here. The board on the right is going to be Hulking Monstrosity. We path through the Frenzied Golem side, get all the intelligence nodes in the cluster here. So you basically do not waste any points here and you get crowd control damage. This means when enemies stagger, especially bosses, you deal 20% more damage. This is very, very important to maximize boss damage. Otherwise, you're going to deal less damage for bosses and it's going to be sucky. Then we path south, another node for bossing. If there are no corpses nearby, you deal 15% more damage with Scent of Death. You're not going to spawn all that many corpses during boss fights. They're always going to be cleaned because of Kuro's Embrace. So you deal 15% more damage versus those. Otherwise, during creeping, during grinding, you will have corpses around you very often, so you deal less damage, but it's enough, still enough, because your Blood Surge gets more damage the more enemies you suck. So overall, you're going to deal more damage during creeping. Then again, here is one point we're missing. Health. I really cannot squeeze this one in. Try to optimize it as much as possible, and that's about all I can do. You get 4% here and 2% here for maximum life. Then we move down here and get the Dominate glyph. Also willpower, very efficient to get those points here. There's just 3 wasted points here. That's the best way to do this. We don't need the armor for preservation, and we don't need death marked. The increased damage is not going to affect us all that much. It's also damage to injured, so not good at all. If you're struggling with armor, you can sacrifice a few more points in health, for example here, and pass through here, so you get to another point here. So that's 4% maximum life for 200 armor. With this one, you can easily cap your armor in combination with the armor here. Then we move back to the BBB board. For this board, it is actually not that important from which side you can either enter and pass through recuperate and color, or from poison condition and stifle. Everything is mirrored except one note here. You get 5 strength instead of 5 intelligence. That's 0.5 more damage. Calculated by the amount of intelligence we have, this one is more towards 0.43% currently for me. So I get a little bit more performance from this side, but I was too lazy to respec this one, so I'm sticking with this. We pick up Flesh Eater. By consuming 5 corpses, we deal 40% more damage. We consume corpses from Corror's Embrace, so that's always good. And then we have Amplify. We curse enemies all the time, so we deal 10% more damage. And the last glyph is found in Cult Leader, so north. We pick up Sacrificial. Very, very nice path. We just go straight to the summon node. We don't want to enter through summon, but through the custody side. Otherwise, we're going to waste a few points because we path right through this one. So here is the intelligence nodes we need. Here is the intelligence node and TEM here. Now, something I just noticed in Blood Begets, we can optimize this one with 2 additional overpower nodes. That's better than 5% damage. Next up, the Book of the Dead. We pick up Skirmishers with 15% critical strike chance. Sacrifice the Skeletal Warriors. Sacrifice the Skeletal Mages for overpower, so 45% more damage. Remember, the 60% additional more multiplier on this one is not effective right now, so this one is more towards 70%, not 45%. And for Golem, we just get the 52% more critical strike damage. We also sacrifice this one. Now, I'm going to talk about the maximized version first. We want to use a Harlequin Crest. A Harlequin Crest, why? Because of the maximum life. It's a gigantic roll of maximum life. And you get a ton of armor, so you can cap your armor. You get 20% damage reduction, and you get the maximum resource, which is really nice to have actually, because you recover over the 100% during regular play. Once you have downtime and you need to run around and avoid the mechanics, you can regenerate more mana, then use your Blood Surge much more often and frequently. So the Harlequin Crest has a few benefits here. An alternative to this one, if you do not have Harlequin's Crest, is the Crown of Lucion, has maximum life and provides you with a more damage multiplier. However, in combination with this one, you need to use the Starlight aspect. This one regenerates 40 primary resource, otherwise you cannot sustain this crown, which is also perfectly fine because you have the Ring of Star Disguise, which you can exchange for this one if you don't have the Mythics. If you don't have Harlequin's Crest, but have Star Disguise, I would advise you to go this way and not use the sacrificial bonus just yet. For the ring, you want to have the lucky hit chance to make enemies vulnerable, so critical strike chance, intelligence, and chance to make enemies vulnerable. With Tyr's Might, you just need something to cap your resistances, get some damage reduction in, and get some armor in, because this is the way to go about armor. You need a chest with total armor and flat armor. Both of them need to be on here. You need intelligence and life. That's your chest. I currently don't have one to show you, but that's what I would use in this slot. And then get any defensive aspect you can find and you prefer on this chest. In the talent planner, I will have selected one. For the weapon specifically, we are going to use something with intelligence and maximum life to omit the Doombringer, because I cannot expect you to have a perfectly rolled Doombringer with 1 greater affix. That's not realistic for you. So a weapon like this with intelligence, maximum life, and vulnerable damage or crit damage is going to be the best in slot here if you don't have another setup. But the vulnerable damage you can roll away for resource cost reduction. Resource cost reduction is actually very, very good on this build, especially if you're rocking the Crown of Lucion and don't have the Ring of Starless Skies. So you can get it on here, so you lose a little bit of increased damage, but you gain the resource cost reduction. A dagger would be preferable with more attacks per second, but a sword is also fine. On the weapon specifically, if you don't have a ring with chance to make enemies vulnerable, you can run a Cursed Touch. Otherwise, anything that's going to buff your damage is going to be preferable here. You can alternatively go with the Embalmer aspect to spawn more blood orbs, to pick them up, boost your damage, boost your health, and regenerate more health. Helps you sustain your Crown of Lucion. For this setup, especially for the setup, I would highly recommend you to still go with the Banished Lord's Talisman. The calculation is still there, and the Sacrificial Necklace with the Tides of Blood. I'm guaranteeing you this one will set you back billions. This is extremely rare, costs you a ton, and is not worth it because the Banished Lord Talisman is just so common and it's so easy to acquire. This one provides me with around 10k life, that's a ton. You get the attack speed you would otherwise get as the Temper. You get core skills, which is equivalent to Coalescent Blood, so that's around 20% more damage. And you get the 60% here, so that's basically if you have a very, very expensive amulet, it's going to be better than the Banished Lord Talisman, but it's much easier to gear with this one. A perfect amulet will cost you around 25 billion. That's way too much and not worth it. Now there's 3 more gear pieces I need to talk about before I move into the best version, which is the Blood Moon Breaches. The Blood Moon Breaches are just here for maximum life, cursed skills, because the Grippifier and Iron Maiden are cursed skills. Those provide you with 10% less damage taken. And you get 150% more overpower damage, which is amazing. Then we pick up boots with essence per second, greater ethics, masterwork this bad boy and recover your essence like this. Really helps out a lot with the build. You want intelligence and movement speed on here. Best case scenario would be to masterwork the essence and then 2 times the movement speed, as well as roll a high temper on the movement speed so you can speed through anything. You're quite slow with this build otherwise, and stun or freeze on the temper is also fine. And as mentioned before, you want cursed aura on this one. And lastly, your focus, you want intelligence, maximum life, and critical strike chance on here. With blood attack speed, the blood attack speed needs to be tempered. That's the best way to go about it. And then blood surge nova size, which helps in the quality of life department. And as the aspect, the bloodbathed aspect. This one is basically going to take your 150 million overpower hit and then multiply it by 0.85, so you get 120 million instead. Absolutely amazing, and nothing tops this aspect. It is just so good. It's the best aspect for this build. The biggest drawback of the non-uber unique setup is going to be your defenses. It is much easier to gear this one, the uber unique version, than it is the regular version. In part because of armor, in part because you're lowering your maximum life by basically half. The Doombringer alone gives you 30k life. That's so much. You get all stats, so a regular weapon would get intelligence, this one gets all stats, really good. A regular weapon would get maximum life, this one gets maximum life percentage. And then you get an increased damage, which is not all that amazing, and this one gets damage reduction instead. This weapon is absolutely amazing for this build, and nothing tops it, nothing. It is the absolute best weapon. For the tempers on a Harlequin crest, go for the maximum life. You don't need the cooldown reduction, I just really like to have this one on multiple characters, so I have both, but maximum life tempers are the best. On Tyr's Might, damage reduction without a question. You can go for 1 temper on maximum resistance to all elements to cap out your resistances to 85%, otherwise you won't be able to. This is also a very valid way to do this, decreases the damage you take from all elements except physical. On Kuro's Embrace, you want to temper and hit the Blood Surge Drains. This one buffs the damage immensely. You want to also temper 1 time Tides of Blood to get that additional rank. That's also 10% more damage. Helps with everything quite a lot. On the Blood Moon Breaches, go for the maximum life. Temper this one to the maximum. 3 tempers on this one will be the best thing you can do on this one. On your boots, Essence 1 time, then movement speed 2 times to not be so slow. On the Doombringer, 3 times maximum life. On the Banished Lord's Talisman, try to get one with a greater ethics on maximum life. Then you don't necessarily need to go for the maximum life and can just pump everything into attack speed, or attack speed 2 times and core skills 1 time. The most important thing is the ethics here needs to be 60%. Then on the ring, on the temper, the increased damage to fortify is a mistake. This one is technically bricked, but it's still so good I'm going to use it. You want to have blood and you also want to have resource generation. This helps immensely with the recovery for essence, for bosses, and I really advise you to go and fish for that resource generation before the blood attack speed. And for the masterworks, try to hit the intelligence. Going to scale your damage immensely, and you want to maximize this one as much as possible. The attack speed is not going to help you all that much because you're going to possibly run out of essence anyway, so that's preferable. Then you have the Ring of Starless Skies. Here, that's the kicker. You want attack speed, 1 point in critical strike chance, and then either attack speed or core skills is going to be the best. And on your focus, blood attack speed, temper this bad boy to the maximum. That's why we only wanted just one time tempered, because you get it here and you get it here. So that's enough to get you to the thresholds you need to get to get your blood surge pumping. If you liked what you saw, make sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe. If you have any questions, also comment down below. You can find everything otherwise in the Mobalytics Talent Planner. So see you next time and bye.